Good evening and welcome to the City of Pasco Council meeting. The council thanks you for being part of our city government. At meetings, the City Council takes formal actions on items, holds public hearings, and conducts other businesses of the city. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. Please note that the City Council meetings may be accessed through GoToWebinar. This meeting is also being televised live on Pasco TV channel 191, on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, and YouTube channel. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. Following the Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery, the COVID-19 crisis, the City Council will continue to hold virtual meetings until the Open Public Meetings Act restrictions are lifted. Lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions for the items not on the agenda by contacting the city manager or city clerk or using the feedback form on the city's website. Also, to continue, although we're in phase 2, I'd like to remind everybody that, there's still requirement to wear masks and hand sanitizers and keeping our distance and maintaining safe. We have a lot of information that we may touch on a little bit later on our vaccines and a vaccine site over at the Benton Franklin Fairgrounds. And with that, would like to have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado.
Present.
Maloney.
Present.
Milne.
Present.
Roach.
Present.
Serrano.
Here.
Councilmember Barajas.
Present.
And Mayor Martinez.
Present. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. May we rise for the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. Next, we'll go to our consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by a roll call vote as one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If further discussion is desired by the City Council or the public, the item may be removed from the consent agenda to be on the regular agenda and considered separately. The first item on the consent agenda is the approval of meeting minutes. To approve the meeting minutes of the Pasco City Council remote meeting held on February 1st, 2021, and remote workshop held on February 8th, 2021. Next on the agenda item is bills and communications to approve claims in a total amount of $3,045,150.63. And those will come in separate checks. And next is to approve bad debt write-off for utility billing, ambulance, cemetery, general accounts, miscellaneous accounts, and municipal court accounts receivable in the total amount of $197,461.96. And of that amount, authorize zero to be turned over for collections. Item C of the consent agenda is the Pasco Fire Department Strategic Plan adoption, and that's to adopt the 2021 Pasco Fire Department Strategic Plan. And that's the end of the consent agenda. If there's no comments or any issues with any of these, I would like to get a motion, entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas. There's been a motion to approve the consent agenda as read. Do I hear a second?
This is Councilmember Maloney. I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Maloney. And so can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Milne.
Yes. Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Serrano.
Yes.
Alvarado.
Yes.
Maloney.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barajas.
Yes.
And Mayor Martinez.
Yes. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Next, we have proclamations and acknowledgements. And today we do have one proclaiming February 2021 as Black History Month. And so I would like to start with saying that this recognition of Black History Month through a proclamation affords us the opportunity to become more knowledgeable about Black heritage and to honor the many contributions of the African American community towards the building and continued development of our nation and our community. Knowing more about the many cultures in our community unifies us and inspires us to identify and remove barriers that keep us apart. The agenda report describes the process by which proclamations are typically brought forward, and this is not the first time that the Council has recognized Black History Month. This is, however, the first time the proclamation request has come from the newly established Arts and Culture Commission, which the City Council formed in part to recognize and help inform the community on the many cultural aspects of our city. With us this evening to provide us with additional context is Art and Culture Commission Chairperson Emma Barnes. Mrs. Emma Barnes, are you on the line tonight?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so would you like to share with us tonight a little bit before I read the proclamation?
Yeah, absolutely. So you said my name is Emma Barnes. I'm the chair of the Pasco Arts and Culture Commission. Tonight we want to take the time to bring forward a proclamation to celebrate Black History Month. We do acknowledge the lateness of this proclamation. As a new commission, we're excited to be able to celebrate art and culture in our community and appreciate the patience and understanding we've received while getting ourselves established. The commission, we felt, would be remiss to allow this month to pass without acknowledging the cultural significance of Black Americans that Black Americans have had and continue to have in our community. Additionally, we should take the opportunity to remind ourselves that Black history is American history. Thank you for allowing the Pasco Arts and Culture Commission to bring this proclamation forward tonight.
Well, thank you very much. Sure appreciate it. And I will tell you, for one, that it is something I take with a lot of compassion and a lot of passion to share. And I just love our history and what the African American community has done to our community, and what all the progress, and just remembering all the things that have come from their efforts. It just never seems to amaze me. So with that, I would like to read the proclamation for Black History Month for February 2021. Whereas in 1926, the Association of the Study of African American Life and History sponsored a National History Week to celebrate and promote achievements by Black Americans and other people of African American descent, which inspired schools and communities nationwide to organize local celebrations, establish history clubs, and host performances and lectures. And whereas in the decades that followed, many college campuses began recognizing Black History Month. And whereas in 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month and called upon the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas since 1976, during the month of February, our nation takes pause to reflect on the injustices and struggles fought and overcome by African Americans throughout our nation's history, and to pay tribute to the battles they have fought in the name of equality. And whereas our community and lives are shaped by the tremendous contributions of African Americans who have used arts as a vehicle for communicating beliefs, aspirations, observations, joys, despair, resistance, and inequality. And whereas the city of Pasco has its own experience with some of the first African Americans settling in Pasco to work in the rail industry, and followed by greater numbers to contribute to the Manhattan Project in the 1940s, and in the process have deeply enriched Pasco's history with culture, skills, and service. And now, therefore, I, Saul Martinez, Mayor of the City of Pasco, Washington, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim February 2021 as Black History Month. So with that, I would like to open it up to any of the council members who would have any comments. Anybody want to share anything? So if not, again, I would just like to emphasize the appreciation we have for all those that have contributed African-American people who have contributed to our community, just like any other ethnicity of this beautiful city. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of in Pasco is our diverse cultures and an appreciation for each and every one of them. And it's just amazing to see how far they've come and all the things that they've contributed to our happiness and to our greater ways of living here in Pasco, Washington. So thank you very much. All right, so next we'll move right along to reports from committees and or officers. First we have, so verbal reports from council members. Anybody have anything they want to report?
This is Councilmember Roach, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who contributed their signature to the MLK Community Center letter. Those people who signed on that letter is going to be passed on to legislators, I believe, on the 18th. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Councilwoman Roach, for kind of taking the lead on that. And I know that I made a couple phone calls, and I saw the long list of people throughout our community who have supported that, and I appreciate everyone who did that as well. So thank you very much for that, Councilwoman Roach. Anybody else? All right, then we'll move right along to hearings and council actions on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto, and there's none listed. Ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. So first we have a resolution for a professional services supplemental agreement number 2 between JUB Engineering Inc. and the City of Pasco. And tonight, we believe we have Director Steve Worley on the line.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight, we bring before you a resolution to add some additional work and fee to the professional services contract for JUB engineers, and this is related to the Lewis Street Overpass project. As council knows, this project has had a very long history. I can't quite tell you yet without doing a little more research how far back it goes, but as an example, the right-of-way phase of this project, all the property that was purchased was completed in 2013, and all of the buildings that needed to be demolished were completed in 2014. This particular contract with JUB for the final design of the project was entered into in 2018 and was anticipated to be for a 2-year process. Now, I don't typically like bringing changes to consultant contracts after the fact, meaning after the work has been done, but I can tell you that in my years of experience, sometimes these things do happen, and especially on larger projects with tight timelines, and I'll explain that to you in just a moment. Because of some of the delays in this project, some of the federally required documents like the National Environmental Policy Act documents, the environmental documents, and even some of the right-of-way documents needed additional research in order to get approval by the Washington State Department of Transportation and the Federal Highways Administration in order for this project to move through the final design process and get it to the construction phase. And during all of this time, there was also the final coordination with the railroad. And JUB has done a great job of finalizing the design and being very flexible with the changes that have occurred through this design process. We did a constructability review as part of this project, which means that when JUB finished the design, we hired another consulting firm who was experienced in designing bridges. And we had them go through all of the specifications and drawings, and they came up with a list of comments, and they reviewed those with JUB as well. And that went very well. And there were also some design requests that Burlington Northern came up with at the very last minute. And it was unfortunate that that happened, but some of those changes needed to be made. And so with our desire to get this project out to bid to meet certain timelines related to the funding for this project and related to other changes that would have been required if we had not got this project out to bid before the end of this year, we asked JUB to do some additional work to get everything completed in time for us to be able to get it out to bid. So this supplement number 2 was reviewed in detail by staff, and they reviewed it, made sure that all of the work in it was work that was requested by the city of Pasco, and that it was outside of the original scope of work. Now, the details of all of those changes are included in your packet, and our CIP manager, Maria Serra, is on the call here to answer any questions you might have related to the details of those. She was very involved in reviewing that. I can tell you that the total design contract with this change is well within the range typical for a bridge project. So there should be no concern there. And I can't say enough about how much JUB has worked very hard with staff to get this project out. So with all of that, staff would recommend approval of this supplement number 2 for the additional cost. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have about it.
Thank you, Director Worley. Yeah, and I can appreciate how long it's taken to, I believe it's 2008 since I started, and I was elected to first be on the council. And this is one of those items that I believe just a year after I got on, we were discussing the potential of having this bridge come in to Lewis Street. And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited about this getting started, and I understand and accept the supplement. So any other council members have any questions or comments about this before we put it to a vote?
Yeah, I've got a quick question. This is Councilmember Serrano.
Yes, Councilmember Serrano, go ahead.
Not so much regarding the scope, but Director Worley, BN has been mentioned several times in regards to requiring extra work, extra costs. We recognize that they are who they are, but is there any way that we as council or anything that we can do to make that process less onerous and less burdensome? Or is it just that's part of playing in their yard?
You nailed it, Councilmember Serrano, right there at the end. We are playing in their yard. In this particular project, it's literally in their yard, but figuratively on other projects that I have been involved with, they generally hold the cards to everything. They are a nationwide company, and they have many, many projects that they deal with. And so, we don't always get the highest priority. I can say that lately we've gotten their attention, which has been really great. But I can also say that with the last minute design changes that they have requested, that is an added cost to the project that we originally didn't anticipate. And I think we mentioned it in the information where they asked that we demolish a portion of the existing underpass. And there will still need to be some coordination with BNSF about phasing to get that work done. And we may need to add some additional work to JUB to help us with that as we get closer to negotiating with the railroad on the details of that. We just didn't want that additional work to hold up getting this project out to bid so that we can start the construction of the overpass while we're still working with the railroad on what we do with the underpass.
Well, I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the foreshadowing of future struggles. I guess, and I've thrown this out before, but if there's anything you can think of that we as a council can do to soften the process or whatever the case may be, let us know. As always, we're happy to help. And again, I recognize that we're playing in their yard literally this time and quite frequently more metaphorically, but whatever we can do if we can, anything. Thank you.
All right, you bet.
Thank you, Councilmember Serrano. Anyone else? Well, if not, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas, would you like to entertain the motion?
Absolutely, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4033, authorizing the city manager to execute the supplement number 2 for the design professional services agreement with JUB Engineers Incorporated for the Lewis Street Overpass project.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Barajas. There's been a motion to approve resolution number 4033. Do I hear a second?
This is Councilmember Roach, and I will second it.
Seconded by Councilwoman Roach. So all those in favor of approving resolution number 4033 signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to resolution to approve the commercial grant Columbia East Force Main and Lift Station Project. Director Worley, do you want to give us an update on this one?
You bet. Good evening again, council and council members, or mayor and council members. This project has been presented to council on several occasions. It is the Columbia East Force Main and Lift Station Project. As council may recall, the lift station project is completed, was completed in 2019, and we have been working really hard to try to get the Force Main project final design. We ran into some issues related to acquiring the necessary easements to cross properties to get that Force Main constructed. We finally got that done. The project is currently out to bid, and we have a bid opening this Thursday for that project. Now, the Department of Commerce is the agency that manages the grants that come from the state legislature, and they had a grant for this lift station project, and they have been unable to release those grant monies to us until they knew for sure that we were able to build the rest of the project, which was the Force Main. And so what they've been waiting for recently is documentation about some federal economic development agency funding that staff has been successful in receiving. Initially, staff was able to get a grant of $3 million, and based on some hard work recently, they were able to get an additional $6 million or $3 million for a total of $6 million. And all of the paperwork necessary that EDA required has been submitted as of last week. And so we anticipate getting the award letter from EDA for the $6 million anytime now, hopefully this week. So with that, staff has been working very hard, Maria especially, on working with Commerce to get the previous grant from the state released. And Commerce is willing to work with the city of Pasco, and if we can agree to execute the contract that you have before you tonight, they are willing to hang on to it until we provide them the documentation showing the funding from EDA for the Force Main project. And as soon as we do that, they can execute their end of it, and that process will then release the $2.575 million in grant funds from the state for the lift station project. And so with that, staff would recommend approval of the resolution authorizing the execution of this grant agreement.
Thank you, Director.
Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Director Worley. Council, anybody have any questions or comments?
This is Councilmember Maloney.
Yes, Councilmember Maloney. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question on this one is, so the Force Main, this all ties back to the process water reuse facility, which is ultimately funded out of fees that are paid by those processors that are participants in that program, right?
That is correct.
So I think this is one of those interesting projects that's great that the state's willing to contribute, because what we're ultimately doing is reducing the burden for those businesses to remain here in Pasco, employ our people, and provide really, provide jobs and provide economic growth in our area. So, this is one of those areas where those things where I know the bureaucracy is a nightmare, and thank you and your team for so much for navigating that successfully. But this is one of those really good news stories for us, because the more we can get the state and federal government to help ease some of these costs for these companies, the more likely they are to stay here, stay local, and expand as we have additional land and they have additional needs. So I'm excited, very, very supportive, glad we're here. And I just want to remind everyone that these things are really important, even if they're so very tedious at times to navigate through. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. Anyone else? If not, Mayor Pro Tem, would you like to entertain the motion?
Absolutely, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4034, authorizing the city manager to execute the grant agreement with the Washington State Department of Commerce for the Colotes Highway Sewer Force Main Project the Columbia East Point Station and Forest Mains.
Thank you. So there's been a motion to approve resolution number 4034. Do I hear a second?
This is Councilman Milne. I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Milne. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It passes unanimously. Thank you. And that's that portion of our agenda item. Now, next we go to unfinished business. And the first item under unfinished business is the option to resume partial in-person public meetings. And I'd like to turn it over to our Deputy City Manager, Adam Lincoln. Would you like to give us an update on this, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So on January 4th, we'd started this conversation, went into a little bit of detail, and then the new Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery was enacted about a week later. So now that we are finally in the new phase 2, bringing this topic back for council discussion. A quick reminder, the in-person meetings would still require to have a virtual version of the meeting like we're conducting right now. Some of the other items, room occupancy would be limited to 25% or less. Face coverings would be required, 6-foot separation would be required, and room sanitation would be required as well. And again, just want to reiterate that going to in-person is a voluntary option, although based on the last discussion, a fairly well-desired option. The plan would include, and these are items from the January 4th memo, all seating would be arranged, well-marked, 6-foot distancing. Staff would sign the entrance to City Hall so that there's a single entrance that's ADA accessible to the council with clear directions to the council chambers. Additionally, the primary exit would be the door that leads directly into the City Hall parking lot from within the council chambers, and again, clear signage would be added so that visitors are clearly denoted where they need to be going. Masks and hand sanitizer would be provided to all guests who attend if they don't bring their own. Staff will continue to provide remote presentations to allow for maximum capacity in the council chambers itself. Provisions for public comment will be made for in-person attendees and via the online meeting option. Online commenters will need to continue to follow the practice of signing up ahead of the meeting to manage meeting decorum in the online environment. In-person attendees wishing to address council on items not on the agenda will sign in to make comments per the historical practice. And if needed, we have the ability to provide an overflow room at the police community center room, again, if needed. Some of the other items that had come up, and some of this will be reiteration, but some of the previous discussion, again, the city would provide clear signage at the entrances to make sure that everyone is aware of the requirements, such as wearing masks. We would also be able to ask people to do a self-evaluation to ensure that anyone with symptoms wasn't going to attend the meeting. Some of the CDC denoted symptoms would include cough, shortness of breath, chills, repeated shaking, or again, chills, muscle pains, headaches, sore throat, loss of taste or smell. Any non-compliance would result in the council being able to immediately recess the meeting and resuming when compliance is achieved, or the council chambers may be cleared and then resumed in an online-only fashion. And the other item that had come up was the discussion on temperature checks. We had a conversation, and probably a good time for our legal counsel to jump in and talk about that a little bit. Assuming he's
great.
on.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting me chat a little bit about this. Yeah, the issue that we were dealing with last time related to temperature checks is the first thing I just kind of want to make clear for everybody is that this is obviously a different situation because we are obviously a city, we are a government agency. And so it is a distinction between private business and obviously a local government, and that really comes into play related to this type of I guess activity, because while folks can have if they don't want their temperature taken when they want to go to get a haircut or some other business activity, they don't have a constitutional right to partake at that particular location or at that particular activity, whereas they do with regard to attending a traditional public forum such as a council meeting. So it's problematic. I think there is no clear black and white answer on it. It's pretty problematic, because one of the concerns that we have is that folks would potentially be asked to take their temperature, and that could be construed as a medical record. The other, I guess, follow up on that is, what happens when somebody has a temperature? Are they not allowed to enter? So there's not a whole lot of case law on this because it hasn't really been tested, but we are going to have a higher standard because we are a government actor, and so constitutional provisions will apply to us in those situations. And we want to be careful because then that would potentially open us up for that. The other aspect of that is it's not real clear, while it's certainly an indicator of COVID-19. I think that's pretty clear scientifically. There's been a lot of debate about the efficacy of taking temperatures, and when somebody doesn't have a temperature, that it kind of gives an impression that that's not currently contagious, which, as we all now know, is not necessarily the case. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about it, but we don't recommend that being a screening tool for this type of venue for what we're trying to do.
Okay. And we'd be looking for feedback from yourself, Mayor, and City Council to see what else we can provide.
Okay. Council, so any questions or comments? I know we have been anxious to be able to come back in and allow for our citizens to come and express themselves, but we have to take these precautions. Any comments you would like to express tonight?
This is Councilmember Maloney.
Yes, Councilmember Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm supportive of us coming back safely. I know that we're all eager to make sure that the public has an opportunity to get a hold of us, and obviously some people, the technology is, we've seen it time and again where someone's on the list and isn't able to connect, or maybe is able to eventually, but it wasn't up front. So I appreciate the concept of us trying to get back safely. I did notice in the draft emergency order was an indication for a number of our boards and commissions to come back as well. And I just wanted to ask a follow-up question from staff. Have those boards been asked if they feel safe? Is it going to be an issue for any of them? I'm just curious if I understand our body, obviously, we have some control here. We could implement whatever we want, but I want to make sure we're being respectful for other people who may be in this different situation. So, code enforcement, I think planning commission, some of those were listed as potential there.
Thank you for that question. That conversation has not gone forward with the other boards and commissions yet. I think we wanted to make sure that City Council was our first priority, and then those considerations would be then discussed with the other boards and commissions that were mentioned in the emergency order.
And I would add that the emergency order does say that the following city advisory boards and commissions may include. So I think that does indicate that it would be up to the individual board or commission to make that determination. As the deputy city manager said, we would have those discussions.
Great, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure, like I said, everyone's that's going to be affected by this has an opportunity to weigh in and and choose where their safety and comfort level is. And the other thing I was going to mention is I appreciate Mr. Ferguson's comments on the temperature check, but I struggle to understand it a little bit. I'm not saying that we need to do that. I'm just my youngest daughter has resumed in-person school at least 2 days a week, and she actually has her temperature checked by school district, which of course is a government agency as well. Every day she's going in. So actually all of the kids, I think across the entire school district do. So I guess I'm not sure I understand Mr. Ferguson's hesitation if at this point in time, a much broader based temperature check by a government agency is being implemented currently. So again, I don't see any need. I'm not advocating specifically for whether or not we need to have that implemented or not. Just it was interesting to hear that perspective given what some of our fellow overlapping agencies are doing. So anyways, that's my comments. I guess I'm glad we have the option. I'm glad we can get back in a safe way. I'm glad we moved to phase 2. And as long as we got the other boards and commissions have their comfort level checked, I'm good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Maloney. Anybody else?
This is Councilmember Roach, and I just wanted to say, I think if we decide, collectively that no temperature check is needed, I think I would just appreciate some sort of sign-in where people can write their name down and affirm that they don't have a temperature or a fever or any of the symptoms that come along with COVID. And that could be a substitute for taking temperatures.
Okay. I would like to make it possible if I think we're all in agreement that we would all like to come back. My first question is, we still have the option to do it online as well, right? So those who wanted to come in could come in, and if not, they could still do it per Teams meeting, right?
Yes, correct.
So I would advocate for, having somebody do temperature checks, but I would also want to ensure that we had somebody from our police department here, just in the event. I would feel a lot safer knowing it shouldn't be an issue. I don't see why anybody would have a problem with taking their temperature, and if they're too high, then we would ask them to please not come in. I would have it. I would open this up for any other council member that would have a difference of opinion. But I honestly think that it would, at this time and where we're at, I would have no problem taking precautions to make sure that we're having temperature checks, and if they're above the normal temperature, that we would ask them to not come in. So anybody have any questions or comments or any objection to that?
This is Councilmember Alvarado.
Yes, Councilmember Alvarado.
Given the history that we've had and how much it's pained us to have to meet like this, I think it's fair and pretty reasonable to ask for those accommodations. And so I'll be in support of that.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Alvarado.
This is Councilman Serrano.
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Ferguson, can you just walk back to what type of liability? I understood that it was very nuanced and very gray, but what type of liability would we be exposed to, and what type of factual scenario are we looking at where we could see liability? Is it that we refuse someone entry based on a high temperature, therefore they feel that some type of First Amendment right has been abridged, or what are we talking about, Eric?
That's correct. So yeah, the distinction between what we're doing and the schools is, as we all now know, that these things are highly nuanced and the devil's in the details. And so really what it comes down to is the specific activity that we're involved in. It's not that we are just a government actor similar to what school districts are, but it's the activity. So the standard that we're going to have to overcome is that we're going to need to show that we had a public health and safety requirement that we're overcoming. And I don't mean to imply that I don't think that we could do that, but I don't think we're in a similar situation such as schools where students are going to be involved in those environments for long periods of time. They're involved in going to school. They're around many other people, obviously, at the same time. This activity is a little more high risk, I guess, from a legal standpoint, because of what we're engaging in is so highly protected through the First Amendment. And then so we're just going to have a few more hurdles to overcome. So from a legal perspective, it is a little more problematic because of the activity that we're involved in doing. And as you very succinctly pointed out, the risk is that somebody is denied that right that civil right based on what they felt was an intrusion of their privacy, and then we would just need to overcome that. I don't think that it's insurmountable. I don't think that with the environment that we're currently in, that it's a huge risk, but there's a risk there that somebody could make an issue out of it.
So that triggers a follow-on question. Is this something that, in addition to those claims, we could see some type of ADA-like discrimination that goes to the Human Rights Commission in addition to a typical civil lawsuit?
Yeah.
Or is that a stretch of the facts, do you think?
No, I think that's exactly the same analysis that is being used in workplaces. They're relying on the ADA compliance issues, and the EEOC has issued guidance to make sure that it's clear what employers can do. So, but again, we are a nuanced situation because we're not telling employees that they can't come to work. We're not telling kids they can't go to school. We'd be telling folks that they can't come and do that seminal right of redressing their government. So it is, we always start to get nervous when we start to get close to that one. But no, I think it's definitely a risk.
Okay, I appreciate that analysis there, and hopefully the rest of the council appreciates it too. I will say this, I am all for opening. I prefer to see it happen next week. I think we've got the sufficient protocols. I have concerns of turning people away, whether it's for temperature checks or even if it's for mask refusals. I'm going to say that, but I think it's worth the risk that I think the folks that want to attend in person are not doing so to make, hopefully not doing so to make some type of scene or something of that nature, but rather to participate in governmental activities. That being the case, my expectation is that in addition to council and staff, that those who attend in person would be willing to comply with our mandates, recognizing that maybe this isn't exactly how we all want it, but it's the best we've got for now. So I, for one, again, I'm open. I prefer that we open as soon as possible. Again, I'll likely be there next week regardless then, since we can open. So I'll see you then. But I'm hoping that council can move forward as a body and move forward for next week. And I look forward to seeing my constituents. I don't know that I would have always said that.
Well, thank you. And I at least I have the same sentiment, Mr. Serrano. So thank you for your comments. And I think City Manager Dave, you have comments?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. So there's an interesting conversation on the temperature check, and I thought Councilmember Roach's suggestion about as people are checking in that we do that. There's a whole list that the Deputy City Manager went through there about symptoms that a person may have if they may be COVID-like symptoms. And maybe as an alternative to temperature checks, if we're concerned about that and the risk that might present, is using that list as well as temperature as a screening tool. And as folks coming in, we just simply will screen them and say, as we've all kind of gone through in other places, have you had shortness of breath, cough, headache, those type of symptoms that are listed here? And those are right out of the governor's proclamation and guidance, and that may be something I think that's fairly comprehensive that kind of goes through a number of different symptoms, not just body temperature. Sure. And I guess we're trusting to the person to give us an accurate answer. Yep. So that's a suggestion.
Okay. Well, if one more opportunity for council to have a comment.
This is Councilmember Roach, and I just wanted to say I am looking forward to being back, and I think that we can do this. We can do this well. We can do it safely. My input is that we definitely have to enforce mask use. And a question that I have for staff is, just knowing the nature of what we're doing, we're having a lot of robust discussion about things. And I know that I can see you all spaced apart, especially the mayors, quite a bit further than everyone else, but it becomes a real task to have a conversation with the mask on, and then our words get muffled into the microphone. And so what is what does that look like for us when we come back and we're having discussion? Do we keep it on except for when we have to speak at the mic, or can you elaborate on that, please?
I would say the governor's order is pretty clear that we're all wearing masks. Even when we're talking,
even when we're
wearing
speaking?
a mask. Yes.
Okay.
And the governor's set that example himself.
So I would say I would be in favor as long as we can meet here. I'd be willing to wear the mask. And again, if you're not comfortable, you can again always do it through a team meeting, just as we have been. But if that's what the rules require, then that's what we'll do to stay safe for now. So hopefully that's enough information, Adam, to start implementing the necessary steps to have in-person meetings, and I'm looking forward to meeting with my constituents here as well. So thank you for that.
Just to be clear, I want to make sure, because what Council Member Roach had proposed, and I'd kind of added on to, would be a checklist screening tool that we use. Is that sufficient? I mean, if there's no objection to that, that's what we'd move forward with.
And there would be no objection on my part. Does anybody have an objection to that? Then,
okay, great.
Then
Thank
we'll
you.
move forward. All right.
So just one quick question, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Maloney.
So one thing Mr. Serrano had brought up was the timing. If I understood correctly, this would be something that would it be next meeting that we'd be going back in person, or following meeting? I guess maybe I misunderstood the timing. I thought it was going to be next week's meeting, that this was going to be issued through an order effective, in essence immediately as soon as the staff's done, and then we'd be ratifying it at the next available meeting.
My understanding is that we start
correct.
next Monday.
Yep.
Yes, next Monday we'll have the safety precautions and the measures and these checklists in place for this. So it is for next Monday. Great.
That's what I thought. And when Mr. Serrano suggested that maybe I got confused for a second there. So I just wanted to make sure that we really addressed it. I thought I was maybe misreading something. So thank you.
All right. Thank
you. If I could, Mayor, we had the dress rehearsal a month ago. Yeah. And so we pretty much know what we have to do, because we figured that out all a month ago, and then kind of had the rug pulled out, and now we're back to where we were a month ago. So we're pretty much ready to go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, we'll move right along to.
Just a quick question. Does this require any type of vote or ratification or anything? I mean, obviously we've spoken at least a majority have spoken in favor. I don't know. I'm just asking, is there any type of vote that's required, or are we just ready to rock and roll?
But there is a vote to ratify the emergency order once the mayor issues it. So the next week you'll ratify the emergency order, but his order will be in effect as soon as he signs it.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Okay. Next, we'll move right along to a new business, nothing listed. We have miscellaneous discussion. City Manager, do you have anything you'd like to share tonight?
So I do have a few items, but I wanted to kind of kick it off with Chief Gear to talk and give us a bit of an update on the vaccine and testing site. We've been trying to get you emails to keep you up to date on what's happening and the great work they're doing, particularly at the vaccination site. And really the only thing holding that site back is not having enough vaccines. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief.
Chief Gear, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll talk about test site a little bit first. Numbers are way down there, but a lot of that's contributed to the weather here over the last week. But they are running about 500 average before we had this snow event. That's down from about a 700 average at that site. We certainly want to encourage people to keep testing And we are looking at some opportunities to take some on-site testing out, especially as more of the farm workers are coming back, and trying to get out there and make sure that we get them tested as they come back to work here. Onto the vaccination site. So the good news is we just found out we're going to get 3,900 vaccines for this week, which this week has been kind of a problem with the weather across the country. It's not just here. Originally, they said we were going to get 2,900. A little bit, probably an hour or so ago, I was told we were going to get 3,900 vaccines, but then also told that they aren't going to show up till Thursday, which I have no idea how we're going to get all those vaccines out. We can do a lot of vaccines. We can probably do 2,000 a day, but I've been emailing back and forth during council with people like trying to figure out how long we can hold those vaccines, how many we're going to have to put out. So it's kind of messed up that schedule. The other good news I think is really important is the State Department of Health is actually, we put in a request. Some of us got together last week. A couple of things happened last week that were really important. One is that they actually are going to put one of the national incident management teams, the regular fire incident management teams in the State Department of Health to plan vaccines. Because I think there was a little bit of a surprise that vaccines were coming. So that's going in place. I was on a call this morning for about an hour talking about that, and I think that's going to be really good. I'm proud to say that State Department of Health pointed out to that team on the in-briefing that our site was pretty much the model for what they expect the rest of the mass vaccination sites in the state to look like. So that's good news. We won't have to make a bunch of changes. Like I said, though, the bad news is we thought we were going to get vaccines tomorrow. Now it's looking like we might not get them till Thursday due to the weather delays. So again, that's going to cause a big problem, but we'll figure it out. And we'll get this stuff pushed out as quick as we can and get as many people through there and change hours and make that work. So with that, the other thing that's been approved, the state approved what's called fire mobilization for the vaccination sites across the state, which will really simplify the billing process, make it very similar to what we do all summer on fires as we send people out and how we bill that. It'll go through the state patrol. We still will have to get a Department of Health agreement for activities that were done prior to 8 o'clock this morning. Council will see that next week as a walk-on at the workshop, but we'll have to have a special meeting to try and approve that agreement with DOH to pay for the upfront costs that have occurred since the 25th when the site started and up until this morning at 0800. So I think that's probably the end of the report unless council has any questions.
Any questions from council?
So, Mayor, I do have a couple more items. So, although I want to note that the chief, he's obviously been doing a great job for the community, for all the Tri-Cities, as well as his team out there. And here he is getting multiple emails during the city council meeting. He's not the IC right now. He's not the incident commander right now. He's actually got a couple weeks off, and he's here, but he's still that much involved over there. So this is it's a big undertaking over there, and a lot of moving parts, a lot of folks involved. So thank you for the report, Chief. A couple other items I want to mention. Obviously, we had a big snow and ice event over the weekend. Crews have been mobilized on that very quickly, and as the council's aware, and for the benefit of the public, obviously our first priority is the primary routes and emergency routes and transit, schools when schools are operating. So to the extent that bus routes and so forth are active, we're dealing with those. And then we get down to collectors and neighborhood streets after we kind of clean those other priorities up. And we hit that, I think this morning around late morning, we've started to get in the neighborhoods. So some folks will start seeing their local streets in front of their homes start to get cleaned up, from the snow. So just a little word to folks so they know what's going on. And we know you're out there, we know you're backed up, but it's not often we get that much snow that quickly. Secondly, want to note, we had a great presentation a couple of weeks ago from our communications manager, John Funfar. And since that time, as a matter of fact, today, Ask Pasco was launched to the public. So that's out there, and folks are able to access that on the internet, on their Apple devices, what have you. And then lastly, I wanted to just note, and I did send council an email, but for council and the public, our legislators will be here next week virtually. We're going to have a mid-session legislative update, opportunity for council to interact with our legislators. And at this point in time, I think all six, both the 9th and 16th delegations are confirmed. So that's all I had for this evening.
Great. That's got all there's a plastic bin.
So we have somebody with their mic on. Could you mute that, please? We're almost done. But what I would also, thank you very much for that, City Manager Zabel. And I would just want to say, well, first of all, I'll just allow any more comments, any other miscellaneous items from the council. So if not, I would just like to say that, you know, this unexpected snowfall, well, I don't know if it was much unexpected. I mean, the news stations were keeping us informed on this, but, you know, we got anywhere between 15 and 20 inches of snow this last week. And I just want to thank every community member. I have, like never before, I don't know if everybody just wanted to get out, but there was so many wonderful people helping their neighbors with whatever tools they had, their kids going over to help. I saw many people helping their elderly neighbors help shovel snow so they can get out of their driveways. And it was just amazing for me to see how wonderful everybody was being by helping and willing to help their neighbors clean up and keep things as safe as possible in their streets. And I did notice there was some movement from the city equipment going to and trying the best they can to clear the roads and then causing a pile to block their driveways a little bit. But, you know, it's not perfect, but with the help of our neighbors, the way I seen it, at least in the neighborhoods around where I live, it was just amazing and just wonderful to see the camaraderie and the willingness of people just to go out and help, and appreciate that very much. So I just wanted to mention that because that was very noticeable for me this week and this weekend. So with that, there's no need for an executive session tonight. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So thank you very much for attending our meeting tonight. It is 7:58 and this meeting is now adjourned. Have a good evening.